Blindness to the Digitalist. These the songs are lives.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Songs of Our Lives. I am Brad Rose. I am an artist, a composer, a writer, the founder of Foxy, Digitalis, and someone who thinks about music and sound far more than is healthy. Each week, I invite on a guest to talk about these songs and the music that has meant a lot to them and left its mark. Previous guests include Darius Jones, Molly Abomsawin, Wendy Eisenberg, more Ease, so many more. I could go on. This week, I am thrilled to have the one and only Sarah Davachi. I was so excited when I saw that Sarah had an album coming out. I was like, ooh, perfect opportunity for this, because I'm a huge admirer of her work, been an admirer for, God, it's a long time. I still remember when her first album came out and just kind of being like jaw on the floor kind of thing. And then, her work has just developed so much more since then, and it's very unique, one of a kind. She's been busy, very busy. So she just released a new solo album called The Head as Formed in the Crier's Choir. It's a mouthful. Which is different pieces and different organs, which I'm kind of been a little bit obsessed with pipe organs for the last while, but especially in the last year. I don't know. I have ideas for a pipe organ piece that are just ideas so far. But if that wasn't enough, and that should be enough, because it's like this double album of drone mastery. I don't know, that sounds silly, but it is. It's, as somebody who loves drone music, has listened to a lot. Anytime Sarah has something come out, it's just, that's the very artful way of describing it. But seriously, that's how good it is. But she has also another release coming out in November called Music for a Bellowing Room, which is a durational piece. It's a collaboration with filmmaker Dicky Bahto, and it is it's 3 CDs and a Blu-ray. So the Blu-ray's got the film plus the whole piece, right? Which is all 3 hours long. And I haven't seen it. I'm very much want to see it. And then the 3 discs, it's broken into 3 parts. So it's like an hour 15, an hour 10, maybe an hour. I don't know, but each one's about an hour, give or take. So massive, massive work. And it's incredible. So what can I say? So with all that, which is a lot, this intro is long, and I'm sorry. Hope you enjoy this conversation, because we had a lot of fun. My guest today is a composer, a musician, a performer. I don't know, a lot of things. I could probably do a whole list, but we'll leave it there. It's Sarah Davachi. Welcome to the show.
Woo. Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me.
So you have a new record coming out. This is like, I've been practicing saying this out loud because it's the last part is kind of a tongue twister for me. So let's see if I get it. The Head is Formed in the Crier's Choir. Did I get it?
That's correct. It's a tongue twister for everybody, I think.
Yeah. So is there like a particular story behind the name, by the way?
Yeah, it's sort of not lifted, but like it's an arrangement. So there was a set of Rilke poems that were influential in the sort of concept of the record. And there was one in particular that was like especially important to me. And so the title is sort of an amalgamation of a couple of the lines from that one.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. It's I really like the title, and I like the fact that it's hard to say because it kind of makes it fun. But
yeah, I was overdue for like a long, annoying title.
You got, it's like every so often you gotta You
Yeah.
got to do that.
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, you talked a little bit about like you just mentioned some of the concepts behind the album, and I really like I really liked what you wrote. That's on. I don't know if it's the liner notes or whatever. It's on the webpage for the album.
Uh-huh.
And can you talk a little bit about just talk a little bit about the like thematic core of the record, I guess, and kind of how that influenced the sort of structure of the album?
Yeah. So it's kind of loosely, I would say, based on the myth of Orpheus. I mean, the music, to be honest, is not like I wasn't really thinking about the myth in like a direct way or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's more that I was taking from two different iterations of the myth. So the Rilke poems and then a Monteverdi opera, L'Orfeo, which is like an early Baroque opera. So the poems for me, and again, particularly that that one poem, which I think is from the second, it's like number 26 or something from the second set. I don't know. Yeah, that really, for me, it was more about the poems informing a sense of like the feeling of the music, or sort of the loose narrative that the record goes
Mm-hmm.
through. And then the Monteverdi opera was more of like yeah, like a musical structural reference of less about the myth in that sense, in that context, and more about the musical structures and the musical feeling that I
Mm-hmm.
was trying to capture in that record.
One of the you talk also a little bit about how, and I think this is really interesting because when I think about like my own work and stuff, I think about this all the time, like the sort of separation between your studio practice and like performance,
Yeah.
um, and s- trying to start to bridge those, like create a bridge between those two things. Um, what I'm curious, like what sort of like challenges or even discoveries have emerged as you've done that? Because obviously it wasn't just with this record. I think you
Mhm.
talked about the last couple. Some of the other recent-ish stuff has explored that, but I'm just curious what that's been like because I think about it all the
Yeah,
time.
I do too. And I feel like we could spend the entire thing just talking about that because it's such a big question. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people, I don't know, a lot of artists don't like talk about it enough, I think. Because I'm sure everybody struggles with it or thinks about it in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's been like since the beginning of like when I first started making music, it's been something that I've thought about because I started making music in like an electroacoustic context of
Mm-hmm.
recording sounds and then being in the studio and having fixed compositions that were meant just for playback. Having that sort of be how I expressed myself musically. And then performance, really up until COVID, performance for me was sort of this afterthought in a way. And
Mm-hmm.
admittedly, I think up until COVID, I kind of sat it a bit lower than like studio. I would say that like, oh, the studio is where I make music. And then
Right.
performance is just kind of this thing that like, I'm in a space and I'm not tied to time. And, I explore it in that way.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I think just like having it removed for a while and then coming back to it was like, it took like a couple months, I would say, of performing. Like I started performing again at the end of 2021. And I think it was really until the end of that year where it was weird, where it was like rediscovering the importance of performance and actually rediscovering how important performative aspects and the way of working through music in a performance
Mm-hmm.
space informs my sense of composition and my sense of what I want to do musically, and where a lot of those ideas actually come from that loosening of time and just being able to explore things in a space. So yeah, it's taken on a different meaning in the last couple of years, especially I think of just figuring out. I still like the idea that there's music that can't be performed live
Right.
and there's music that only exists live, and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't make sense to try to put it into a format, into a listening format otherwise. I still think about those kinds of projects that I can do musically, but yeah, it's become challenging but also interesting to try to see where I fit in that balance between the two.
Yeah.
And it is fun to like, I don't know, I think I'm less interested these days in making like fixed pieces that only
Mm-hmm.
exist in that way, and figuring out how to even if I'm doing it in a backwards way, like often I'll make the piece and then the score is the last thing that happens. Where it's almost like that's sort of the afterthought of like,
Yeah. Oh
how
my
does
God.
somebody perform this? Okay. Yeah, but it's, I feel like it's going to be a constant thing that'll be changing.
Yeah. God, I relate to that so much. Like the score is and to be fair, like I don't usually do traditional scores because
Mhm.
my ability to read music is elementary. But um yeah, like that's the same. That's how and I've been trying to think about that more of, okay, if someone was going to perform, like I don't necessarily want it to sound like my thing.
Yeah.
But like if they were going to perform this idea, how in the hell how do I map that out for somebody? Or
Yeah. Or even like for myself, like if I do a piece in the studio, then it's like, oh, I might want to perform this. How do I
yeah.
do that?
Yeah.
Well, it's the same kind of issue.
I know. Yeah. I think about that because it's like, okay, I've overdubbed 40 things on here and
Mhm.
I'm going to go do this as one person.
Yeah.
Huh. But it's also, I don't know. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. It's like a little puzzle to figure out.
Yeah. Yes. So another thing that you do that is like right in my wheelhouse is, and specific to this album, you got 4 different pipe organs. Is it 4?
Yeah.
Like I love pipe organs. I love organs.
Yeah.
Um,
Very special instruments.
yeah. I'm curious, like the specific 4 that are on this record.
Mhm.
What kind of drew you to those 4, or how is it those 4? And are there certain, I don't know, like different characteristics of them, of their like sound or their timbre or whatever, that kind of contribute to the overall palette of the record?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of them, the one in Helsinki, I had played before a few times. I'd done a few concerts. And I don't even know why that one is so special. It's partly like, I think with organs for me, it's often a mix of like the instrument and then also the space, and it's just this thing that's like a little bit hard to pinpoint exactly what's so special about it, but
Yeah.
it's everything sort of clicking into place in some way. And certain instruments that you wouldn't think would be special end up just having this feeling about them, and then other ones that you think are going to be amazing are kind of like, that was um, yeah, so you can never really predict it sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one, I don't know. It just something about the way that it sounds is really special. There's one in Oberlin that I used. It's a Baroque organ. So, and actually, yeah, the other ones are Baroque organs also, in the sense that you can move the stops in and out in a gradual way. So rather than it just being on and off, the sound being gone. And that lets you do a lot of interesting things with like
Yeah.
air pressure, and yeah, it changes the timbre and the pitch a lot. And the Oberlin organ is also tuned in mean tone temperament, which is my
Oh,
favorite
wow.
temperament to work with. Yeah, so they each have their own like specific. I don't know. It sounds cheesy, but I think of instruments often as like individuals, like almost like people, and they each kind of have their own character. They have their own things that they say or that they don't say, and part of what's fun about playing them too is like taking the time to get to know them as well, like exploring them a bit. And organs are just so like perfect for that, I think.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. Yeah, especially like organs especially feel like these like almost like living things. I mean, they are these living things
Yeah.
in a way, but yeah.
Yeah, they breathe.
Yeah, right. I mean, what else do you need?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good leads to my last thing I was going to ask about, which is the like different tuning systems you use.
Mhm.
Which that's one of the things I always get like I like to nerd out about and see
Mhm.
what weird tuning systems or different tuning systems people use.
Mhm.
So you mentioned mean tone
Mhm.
temperament.
Yeah.
What is it like? What is it about that you're so drawn to? Do you think? And what other tunings? I should have written down which ones it said you used, but you
Yeah.
can tell me.
That's okay. I'll tell you. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes with organs, unless you retune the entire instrument, you're limited to
Yeah,
what tuned in. And
whatever.
yeah, often they're just tuned in equal temperaments. So there's not much you can do about that. But there's ways you can work around it. But yeah, I have an ensemble piece. It's a wind ensemble that isn't just intonation, which I work with a lot. And just intonation tends to be more of the common one, I suppose, that
Right.
people who do work with different tuning systems tend to gravitate towards that. And it has its own specific feeling, and it's an approach to tuning, right? Not a specific tuning system in itself. So each of its iterations have different things that you can call upon, or different things that you can emphasize. Mean tone temperament is used on, I think, 2 of the pieces on this record. And it's different because it is like a set tuning system. But again, there are different variations in it, different sizes of intervals, and certain intervals that are specifically very consonant, and others that, as a result of trying to get that consonance in a closed keyboard system, that others were quite dissonant. And usually the dissonant ones are ones that people ignore, or try to avoid. But there's one interval, so it's called a wolf interval anytime it's like too big or too small and it's quite dissonant. And there's one in particular in mean tone temperament that happens between an A flat. It's basically anything that touches the A flat. And I just love the way that it sounds at any interval. It's so big and it sounds so good. I tend to lean into the wolf intervals. I like to emphasize them. So
Lean into the wolf. That's like a
those are the name of the record.
Yeah, put that on a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Sarah Davachi, lean into the wolf. When did you start getting sort of like interested and drawn to different tunings and stuff? Has that been like a forever thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like in keeping with what experimental music is, I think you're just drawn to other ways of thinking about things and doing things as just sort of a general approach. And I think I was interested in harmony and timbre and things like that early on. So tuning just sort of became a natural path. And early on, like when I was still living in Calgary, I took a class in, like, I think it was like music and mathematics or something. So it was about tuning in particular.
Yeah.
And working with numbers and thinking about music in a sort of geometric way. But really, like in a concrete way, like a deliberate, intentional way. When I started at Mills, the very first seminar that I took, like the first day of classes, the first thing that I experienced there was a seminar in just intonation. And so I think, that was just sort of the like, okay, this is actually something I can understand and make sense of and use and understand it in a way that's more than just how it feels to listen to it. Yeah. So it's been a while, I guess. It was a long time ago. So I would not want to admit that, but
well, there's a lot of things that we were just talking about that I could talk about probably for this whole like hour, and we're not going to do that. But this is I don't know. This isn't maybe the greatest segue, but going back to your time at Mills, that's going sort of far back, but now we're going to go even further back. There you go. How about that? So
makes sense.
To start, what's the first song that you remember?
Yeah. Well, again, I do want to preface this by saying that this is like incredibly hard to pin all these things. And I hope it's okay that I took like some liberties in how I interpreted.
Absolutely.
I assumed people do that, but so for this one, I mean, as far as I remember, like the first song that I remember like being aware of and like, getting it stuck in my head and being like, oh, I want to hear that song again or whatever, like having some recognition of it mentally. Is the song Serenade by the Steve Miller Band. An overlooked band. And actually a lot of their earlier stuff is quite proggy. But
it all comes back to this.
Always 6 degrees of separation I remember when I was like probably 4 or 5, my dad he's an engineer, and he had to do like a summer's worth of work in New Brunswick, which is a province, a maritime province in Eastern Canada. And so, like me and my siblings, we weren't in school. So the whole family spent the whole summer in New Brunswick. And I have two older siblings also, which influences questions like this because
Sure.
my brother is actually 11 years older than me. So from an early age, I was exposed to music that I definitely would not have been otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I remember like being in this rental car, just like driving around. New Brunswick's like a pretty small province. And yeah, I just remember like driving around to all these different places, like go to the Bay of Fundy and things like that. And just listening. I think it was like the Steve Miller like greatest hits CD that we were
Uh-huh.
listening to. But this
It's got like
song,
a blue cover.
yeah,
And
exactly,
it's,
with the
yeah, with the horse.
or the horse. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I just this song in particular, I was like, wow, what is this? This is so
Yeah.
cool. Like, and then being older and listening to it and having some appreciation of like the harmonies and yeah, it's a really cool song.
It's a really, yeah, it's funny. Like my memory, like a lot of what you're saying really resonates because so my sister is 3 years older than me. And I
Uh-huh.
remember she was in high school. I think I was in, like, she was like 10th or 11th grade. So I was in 7th or 8th grade. And so it was when she could drive. So I
Wow.
would ride with her to school and
Mm.
ride home.
Uh-huh.
And for some reason, the Steve Miller Band Greatest Hits was like this huge thing with her and her friends.
Yeah.
And so driving to school, like this is like all we would listen to
Oh,
for
it's so funny.
months.
Wow.
Yeah. And then like once I learned the words, we'd be singing along. It was, yeah.
Yeah.
So I hadn't thought about it in a while though, until like, I don't know, until I got your list. And then it was just like, I was right back in that car, like, oh my God. But it
Wow,
rules.
yeah,
It
it's
really
good.
is. It's really good.
It's so good. Yeah. Yeah. I wonder what it was about that greatest hits. Cause yeah, I was trying to remember, like, was he listening to a particular record? And no, it was that greatest hits CD that,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was huge. Like it
Yeah, it
was,
must have been. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I wonder if it was like there was a song in a movie or something back in, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's got to be some reason that Steve Miller Band in the 90s
Yeah.
like became this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder. But yeah, you
Yeah.
should look into like earlier Steve Miller bands. It's very
Yeah.
different.
Okay, gonna have to go down the Steve Miller Band rabbit
Yeah.
hole.
Yeah.
I'm
It's not a bad
I'm
place to go.
yeah, no, I'm like pretty excited actually.
Yeah.
um okay, well, do you can are, do you can think of yourself as like a big crier?
Yeah. I think more than like I don't know. It sounds weird to put it in these terms. I think I'm pretty emotional. I'm not like and I'm somebody who kind of wears my emotions on my sleeve.
Mhm.
I've learned how to like control it when I need to in certain situations when it's beneficial
Sure.
to do so. But I'm pretty like I'm an emotional person. Like if I watch like my partner and I watched this is really embarrassing to say. We watched Wally recently
Oh,
on a flight.
yeah. Oh,
Super sad movie. Oh
yeah.
my god. And yeah, I was like the whole time I was trying to like keep it together because we were on a plane and
Oh man. You know, there's something I've heard people talk this like when you're on a plane especially,
uh-huh.
like thing it's like I don't know what it is. There and I think there's even like research on this. Like you're way more prone to like cry at stuff you wouldn't and I'm not
Oh,
saying this is true in this instance because Wally
mhm.
is a pretty fucking
Yeah,
like,
agree.
but it's like it's something about I don't like being in a plane and
Yeah.
like and I've heard a lot of people that I know, people I don't know talk about how yeah, I watched this on a plane and I was just a wreck and I don't even understand why. So
Yeah.
be careful flying. Just
Yeah.
watch dumb shit and you might
Yeah.
be okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. But yes, I do think I'm a crier.
okay.
I feel
Well,
my emotions.
I same. God, I'm doing this thing. I'm not going to get into it because nobody cares. But I had to rewatch Arrival for this seminar I'm in,
Mm,
and I hadn't watched it in a couple of years, and and we also had to then read the short story it's based on because
mhm.
anyway, I hadn't watched it in a few years, and I mean since it came out, and my kid's 11.
Okay.
I was like for the rest of the day, I was like, I can't move. I was so wrecked by
Oh
that. Anyway,
wow.
I
Wow.
mean, anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know that soothing. Okay, well, what's the song that'll make you cry?
Yeah.
Get off this tangent.
Yes. So yeah, the song I that feels the most honest for this one for me is this Graham Parsons song called Zaz Blues. I don't even really like Graham Parsons. I'm not like a country rock person.
Yeah.
I don't go down those paths. But this song to me is just like heartbreaking. And actually, I think maybe I've mentioned it like a long time ago in an interview. I might have mentioned it, but now it's going to be on record that this is a song that I want played at my funeral.
Oh,
So if something should ever happen to me, everybody knows now.
Yeah,
This is
that's
what I
fun.
want.
I'm working on basically what I'm calling the Songs of Our Lives, the remix, so I can have people back on who I want to have back on. And it's like, so it's all different questions. And one of them is, what song do you want played at your wake or your funeral? So
yeah, this one.
It's a good,
It's just like, I don't know what it is even about it. Like, I don't know.
I don't either. I think there's something about, like, it's so, like, the way it's recorded feels like very raw and like, and then there's just something about for me, I think it's the melody. It's like more the melody than the words.
Yeah.
Or something.
It's kind of wistful. It's not like obviously sad. And to me, I think it like, I don't know, it feels like it's about life sort of ending. I don't know. It's I often wonder this because I think it's just like such a sad song, but I don't think other people, and I guess I'd be curious as also being an emotional person, if you find it as sad or if it's just me that I'm like.
No, I think I find this song, I mean, what you're saying is how I feel. Like, I find it quite sad, but I don't really know why.
Yeah.
But when I saw it on your list, because I hadn't thought about it in a while, because I'm like, I don't really care about Graham Parsons, but like, and so when sorry, Graham stands. But when I put it on again, and it was just like immediately, I just like kind of felt it in my chest.
Yeah.
And
it like kind of,
I don't know why.
Yeah, it kind of hits you. And it doesn't, I wondered like if I'm sure it's his song, but it doesn't really even sound like Graham Parsons or.
No.
I don't know.
I think if I didn't know, if I didn't like know it was Graham Parsons and someone just played it for me, I wouldn't guess that at all.
Yeah. I don't know, but
maybe that's part of why I like it, because again, I'm pretty indifferent about Graham Parsons, but this doesn't sound like Graham Parsons.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's such a beautiful song though. But I agree. I think part of it too is that it's like, it feels like you just sort of walked in on him playing in it. Like he was already in the mental space of it, or thinking about death or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's almost like here. Yeah, it's like there's an element to it of, am I supposed to hear this?
Yeah.
This feels kind of private.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, well, on the flip side, what's the song that'll put you in a better mood?
Yeah. I am a really big fan of like early REM. And actually I almost put one of their songs for the first question for a song that I like remember early on. So they've like been, and like that era of REM has been like really important in my life, most of my life. Yeah, and the song, I don't even actually know how you, like, I don't know, is it South Central Rain?
I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't know. I don't even know how you say it. But whatever it's called, it's my favorite REM song. But it's just, there's something about the chord progression in it that it almost feels to me like, I don't know how to articulate it exactly, but it feels like it's not like a fully completed song. Like it feels a bit like an afterthought or something with the progression. It just feels like the outro of a song or something. But there's just, there's something about the chord progression that's just like, I don't know, just really does it for me.
Yeah, it's really good. And I really love the bass line. Like the bass in it is really good. I think I don't know that how much attention I really paid to like the lyrics and stuff. And I was reading them and I was like,
yeah,
I kind of like it kind of actually, in some ways it feels like this I don't know, it just feels like very human and very
Mhm.
alive, like not in a like I'm pumped up and hyped sort of way, but just this is what it feels like to be alive kind of
Mhm.
thing. And maybe part of that's the chord progression, because the chord progression is really really good.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, stuff like that is so interesting to me when like what is harmony? What
Right.
are chords? What is this thing that like when you hear it, when it happens, it's just like you can't really explain it, and
I
that's
know.
a nice feeling.
Yeah, I know. I feel like that's those are the kind of things that, because like I listen to a lot of music,
Uh-huh.
obviously because of Foxy and stuff, but like
Yeah, yeah,
those are the things that I'm searching for,
yeah.
is like those feelings. Or I really like stuff that confuses me, and I listen to it, I'm like, I don't understand this. I don't
Mhm.
understand what's going on here.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Let's
Yeah.
listen to it again.
Yeah.
But okay, well, everybody's favorite question: what is objectively the greatest song of all time?
Oh my God, this was the hardest song, or the hardest question, I mean, on the questionnaire. This I spent so long, like I think I overthought it maybe a little bit.
It's easy to
Like,
do.
yeah, even with this song, I was like, well, it's not really like a traditional song structure, and like subjectively, like you wouldn't necessarily put this kind of, I don't know. I was just thinking like way too far about it. But I mean this song I think is just like perfect. Like there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with it. It's so catchy. It's so well done. Just like everything about it. It's like for
Yeah.
me it's like when you think of like a song, this is
Yeah.
what comes to mind. So that I think that fits the bill of the question.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I don't
Are
know.
you, are you gonna say what the song is? Do you want me to say?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, oh no, I missed the setup. Sorry, I was reading it and I just
It's
forgot.
all good.
Yeah, it's the song that I chose is In Love by Prince. It's an early Prince
Is
jam.
this his first record? I can't even remember. Is this first or his second
Might be the
record?
second one. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's the second one.
But he was still like 19 or
Yeah,
something
he was early
insane.
young. Yeah, which is crazy too, because it's like you think of everything that came after. I don't know. It's just like he everything he was doing was kind of like just dialed in from the very
I
beginning.
know, it's like he just like popped out of the mold.
Yeah, already
Like,
done, and like
yeah, it was just like, all right, I'm one of the best there'll ever be
yeah,
from
and the
day one.
development, like at that point, you're not even I mean, you are hearing him develop, but like it's more it's like with David Bowie or something too, where it's like
Yep.
you kind of hear him experimenting and going through the motions over time rather than like trying to figure out his voice. It's like
Yeah.
he like already just came out of the mold with a voice, like
Yeah.
perfected voice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, it's kind of a weird again, I was like when I was listening to it and trying to narrow down the choice, like his singing style in it is I mean it's I think it's indicative of his style where it's like it's not like a falsetto, but it's like that weird like whisper singing almost.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't know, like, does this count as like objectively the way that somebody's supposed to sing?
I don't know. It rules. That's all. I
Yeah,
mean, and
yeah,
I love that. I was really, because Prince has unsurprisingly come up multiple times on this show, but
yeah.
I don't know that anybody's ever gone to like his one of his early ones. And
Huh.
I think those first two records, and I mean I sort of get it, but I feel like they get overlooked.
Yeah, I agree.
And I mean obviously like the stuff that came later, I get why it
Yeah.
sort of, but God, they're so good. And like he plays everything I think on this.
Yeah. I think
And
that's what's like really intriguing to me about him is like, because in my own work, not that I like am at all trying to compare myself to anything like that. But like I'm like a control freak. And I often like when I
yeah,
work with ensembles, I often wish like, oh, if only I could play every single instrument, then
yeah,
I would already know how to write music for all of these instruments, and it would be
right.
perfect. Like that's what's holding me back is I don't know how to play every instrument. Um, and yeah, so there's something that I admire. I mean, there's definitely obviously something to be said for like trusting other people and like being able to
Sure.
allow other people to bring their voices in, but it's also like it's pretty impressive to me that somebody can like make this kind of music basically on their own.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to get my head around when I really think about it, but
yeah.
I mean,
yeah, he was on a different level altogether.
That's why he was Prince and
Yeah.
we're mere mortals.
Yes.
So. Okay, well, what's the song you used to love, but now if you listen to it, it doesn't really do it for you?
Yeah, this question was hard too. Hard. And I like once I actually made my decision, I was listening to it and I was feeling a little bad. I was like, oh, I do like this song. Like, it's nothing personal, you know.
Yeah.
I'm getting emotional about immortalizing a song. So the song that I picked for this one is by Phil Manzanera, who used to play in Roxy Music, and it's a song from one of his solo albums called Alma. And I still like the album that it's on. It's called Diamond Head, and I still like that record a lot. But I think it's I don't know. Sometimes I go through phases with stuff like this where like I remember hearing this record for the first time, and this song in particular was like the one that I really latched onto, and being like, this is the greatest song ever written. I can't imagine how anybody could even hear this and not think it was like the greatest thing ever, put to record.
Yeah.
And yeah, over time, now when I hear it, I'm kind of like, why did I like it? Not that I didn't like it, but I'm kind of like, I don't get what I was thinking.
Right. Yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah. No, I think that I have stuff like that where there was a period in time where, yeah, it was like, this is the best thing I've ever heard. How is this? And then eventually it's kind of like, well, I mean, actually it's just kind of fun. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
which is fine. Like not everything has to be the best thing I've ever heard, but
yeah.
And it's like the number of I think I often think about like the number of things that I've thought that about and the number that I still think that about. It is a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's normal. Like it, you know, that's your sensibilities change, the place where you're at changes, and the music that you're going to respond to changes too. But even like with this song, like listening to it, preparing for this, I was kind of like, oh, it sounds like kind of annoying actually. Like I don't really get why I liked it so much. There's like one part of it, there's not the second verse, but like the second verse melody, still like I think it's really nice, but that's kind of
about the
these days. The rest of the record is really good still, I think.
Yeah, I haven't listened to it in a long time. I mean, I think I've maybe listened to it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah,
this is a like a thing I haven't dug into, like as much as I don't know. Should, who knows? There's so much shit. Who knows?
Oh yeah,
it's
it's
impossible.
too much. It's hard.
It's
it's
impossible.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what's a song that some group of people, whoever they are, people hate it. You don't care.
Crazy people.
Yeah, that crazy people hate, but that they're wrong about.
Yeah. Well, this again, I interpreted this a little bit more personally, I suppose. The song that I picked for this one is a Todd Rundgren song called "Song of the Viking," and if I had to pick just like one musician, one singer-songwriter, it would be Todd Rundgren. He writes the most incredible songs, and similar to Prince, he's one of those like, I'll do everything. Kind of people. And I think it's kind of cool. So yeah, but this song, it's not like, I've gone out and done a poll or whatever. People just tend to not like this song, but I've noticed, like if I like DJ it at like if we have people over or at a party or something like that, there's looks of like, what is this? Why are we listening to this song? And I get it. It's a little weird. It's a silly song, kind of, but it's just so like, it's so on the nose of like what's amazing about his like songwriting and his production style. Yeah, it's a weird song.
Yeah. So I had a conversation yesterday. We were talking about like silly and goofy songs and how it is really hard to write a silly song that it's like, I mean, it's like easy to write a bad silly song, I think.
Of course,
but like, because there's that line between like silly and corny.
Yeah.
And And like so, and like I love silly song. I think like if you can, and this is the perfect example. It's like it's totally goofy, but it's so good. It's like
Yeah.
he goes. I think part of what I love about it is like he just seemed to decide like I'm just gonna go all the way in here, and I'm just gonna do this. Like
Yeah.
and I just it's there's something. It's like very like it's like the melody, and it's like infectious and like kind of joyful and fun. I don't know. There needs to be
Yeah.
more fun. You
Yeah.
know?
I agree. Yeah. And I don't know. I kind of imagine it like, I mean, obviously I have no idea, but I imagine him being in the studio and this just kind of like happening in like one day,
Yeah,
not like him toiling over it, like let's get the ending of
yeah.
that.
Because
Or like,
you would overthink it, and it would be
yeah,
then it would become. It'd be like, oh god, no.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's like with it, I mean, people say that about like minimalist music too, where it's like, it's so easy to make. It's just one note,
Yeah,
But it's not. And it's like anything, it's doing it well. Doing it poorly
yeah,
is easy, and doing it well
right.
is difficult.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, I know I know a lot of people who I don't. Yeah, I've had similar experiences where I've played the song or like in a
Mhm.
hanging out or something, and people are like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
it's one of those moments for me too where like I really like it and I'm only aware that it's weird by other people's reactions, or I'm like, I actually listen to it in a different way and I'm like, I guess this is like kind of a strange song.
I feel like that's sort of a story of my life where
Yeah.
in so many things. Oh, this is weird. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I
of
guess.
course. I
Okay.
guess it is. Yeah.
I'm the weird one. Oh shit. Okay, right. Yep. So
Yeah.
um okay, well what's the most romantic song? Do you think of yourself as a romantic?
Um, yeah, sure. I mean, I think that's like one of those terms that, and this I sort of struggled with too, like thinking about the song to represent this. I think it's one of those terms that like can mean a lot of different things and is more about like interpretation of like the
Mhm.
situation and the person. And because a lot of romantic gestures, like over the top romantic gestures, I think can be like a sign of problems.
Right.
Not like and things that are seemingly simple, I think can be very romantic.
Yes.
So yeah, for me this was kind of a tricky one because I didn't want to pick something that was like really obvious, but also I think it's funny because the song that I picked, which is by Bobb Trimble, it's called 1 Mile from Heaven. Um, I don't really know much about him. He's like some like private press singer songwriter, East Coast guy. Um, I think a bunch of his music or this record was reissued by somebody somewhat recently. I can't remember what label it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the whole record's really good. But this song is like, it's not a romantic song on the surface. I think it's like about a breakup, actually. Like the
Right. Yeah.
lyrics seem to be about like somebody leaving and somebody
Right.
like figuring out how to move on with their life. And like I think the way that the title's interpreted is that like maybe the person who's being broken up with was like terrible or something. And
Right.
the person leaving is like going off
On to
to
something
much
better.
better life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the most like romantic lyrics. But it's funny. It made me think that like when I listen to the song, there's just something about the songwriting that just feels really romantic, or so like I could imagine it like in a movie or something that I don't know. There's just it's that sort of dichotomy was interesting to
Yeah.
me. Like it's actually not a particularly romantic song, but it just sounds super romantic.
Right. It does. It's I like that there's that weird kind of dichotomy. And then
Yeah.
I don't know, and then you take that with like the cover of the record.
Yeah.
Which is like him sitting there
Oh
holding
my
a
God,
gun and
yeah.
and with
Okay.
it's like all of that together, it really works for me in a weird sort of way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see that. And I think I don't know, there's something like something about his voice like really
Oh
gets
yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for like a good
Yeah.
I don't know, falsetto-y kind of voice, but
Me too. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know much about. I know like nothing about him. I think I've only heard this record of his. I don't know if I've heard
Yeah.
anything else.
I feel
If
like
there
I've
is
heard
other
something
stuff.
else, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this
Yeah.
song doesn't really sound like what else is on the record either.
No.
It's weird.
Yeah.
One off.
He must have been going through it when he wrote this one, I guess. I don't know.
It's the romantic, wistful state of mind.
Yeah. What's a song that changed your perspective on an artist, either for better or for worse?
Yeah. So this one is for better. The song that I picked is Rainy Night House by Joni Mitchell. I'm one of those people that like I was very late to the game with Joni Mitchell. I think it was like a number of things. She actually was born like an hour outside of where I grew up. And it's one of those things of like the Canadian music thing. I don't know. It's very easy to like overlook a lot of these people because they're like shoved down your throat culturally growing up.
Right. Yep.
And it's funny because Neil Young, who's also like a very famous Canadian, growing up, he like never felt Canadian to me. He felt like Neil Young's from California, you know? He's a California musician. But Joni Mitchell was always like, okay, I get it. You know, she's Canadian, whatever. And I think just like hearing, you know, like the radio hits, whatever, I just didn't get it. I never understood it. I never liked it. I didn't understand why people did. And then probably like 2 or 3 years ago, I can't remember what I was like, where I was, but I heard another song that's on this record, which is Ladies of the Canyon. I think it's that Circle Game song. I remember hearing it and being like, oh, this is Joni Mitchell? Weird. Okay. I guess maybe there's something there. And so then I went and listened to this record and this song is on it. And when I heard this song, I was like, holy shit, like, why have I waited so long? And then I went on like this big Joni Mitchell deep dive. And so now I get it. I love her. She's amazing. It's just one of those things that
you have to find things like at the right time. I mean, there's so many things where there are still things where I think like every few years I'm like, I know I should like this. This is, and for some reason, so it's like I keep trying and maybe, you know, but this is such a beautiful song. Oh my God, it kills me.
Oh yeah.
I don't really have a whole lot of like, you know, the funny thing is though, is I forget that Joni Mitchell's Canadian.
Oh, really?
I just so associated with like New York and all that. And so, but I can imagine growing up and, you know.
Yeah. Canada holds on to its people very big deal.
Yeah.
Who's Canadian, who's not.
Yeah, and then but it is like and then funnily enough, I always think of Neil Young as Canadian, but he does seem like he should be. It's like, no, he's like quintessentially California.
Yeah. Yeah.
How does it all work?
Yeah. It's weird.
Okay, well, speaking of quintessentially Californian,
oh yes,
what are your favorite lyrics?
Yeah. So the song that I picked for this is Surf's Up by the Beach Boys. I love the Beach Boys. I mean,
me too.
Yeah, it's funny actually, this pairing, because my partner is from California. He grew up in Santa Barbara, and like he's very Southern California's in his blood. He grew up like surfing and, you know, beach culture and all that kind of stuff. And so when we met, he kind of hated like California music, you know, like it was very like surfing, beach, California, summer sun kind of stuff.
Right.
And I, growing up where I did, which is in Calgary, which is like the Texas of Canada, I grew up, this is partly why I hate like country rock, because anything country music was just a very dark part of my
like I grew up in Oklahoma. I get it.
So you get it. It's nothing like objective about the music. It's just what it associates for you that you just can't do it. And he was obsessed with country music when I first met him, and I was obsessed with the Beach Boys when we first met. So it was a funny overlap. But God, the Beach Boys are like, and this record, Surf's Up, is like the greatest. It's better than Pet Sounds for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
Oh, this is like one of the best records ever made.
Yeah, especially the B-side. It's like it just gives me chills like thinking about it. But this song, I don't even know like what it's about. Really? Like I again, like prepping for this, I was reading through the lyrics because this was like a very obvious choice for me. It's always been one that, like, for whatever reason, I don't know, the lyrics are just, they're kind of like, there's something like kind of cheesy, but like there's that one line where he says adieu or die, like do or die, but he says it adieu, like goodbye.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just like weird stuff like that I guess maybe as somebody who doesn't write lyrics as a part of my practice, maybe I have a different perspective on what I like.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just like something weird about the lyrics in this song. And yeah, I don't even know what the song's about.
Yeah,
Really.
I don't either. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really matter because
No.
it's like,
Yeah.
it's funny. Like this song gets picked a lot for. I think it's been picked for like 5 or 6 different questions.
Oh,
Like,
really?
but never the lyrics question.
No.
Yeah, I think a couple people have called this objectively the greatest song ever, and it's like, yeah, I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the Beach Boys were one of my formative memories was being 5, 6 years old and staying home sick from school, or well, more likely it was. So my mom went to church and took us to church, but my dad didn't go to church, and so if we were sick, we got to stay home with my dad, and so I would fake being sick because we would just sit around listening to Beach Boys and Bob Dylan records.
That's so nice.
And so yeah, and so like the Beach Boys are, I mean, and I have like I have more mixed relationship with Dylan, but like the Beach Boys are just, I don't know, and I like all of it too, like even the cheesy Surfing USA stuff. Like
I do too. It's, again, like I think I as music, I guess I like the later stuff more. But like, again, like in an objective sense, the early stuff is like such good music.
Right.
It's like, yeah, it's just like so well done, and all the little bits that you see sort of fleshed out later are still there, all the harmonies, and it's like weird still in this like context.
Yeah, no, totally. I think that's whatever I think of, like the idea of like the craft of songwriting or whatever, like the Beach Boys, it's like the first.
Yeah.
That's the top of the mountain.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's also something about this song. I mean, speaking of like early stuff, I mean, the way I kind of hear it, and this whole record is maybe like a bit of a cheeky thing. Like it's called Surf's Up, so it's like this reference to their early vibe and like what they're supposed to represent, but it's like this super depressing.
Right.
It's like the whole beach, sun, happiness, whatever thing is this facade for this like really deep pain.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. It comes out in this song a lot for me.
Oh man, it's so good.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
What song have you or can you listen to the most?
Yes. So this one I picked a Butthole Surfers song. I picked Rocky. Not to be confused with Ricky, which is also a song.
This is also a great song.
Yeah, but I prefer Rocky. It's my favorite Butthole Surfers song. I'm also like obsessed with the Butthole Surfers. I've been like, I don't even remember how I came across them when I was a kid. I do remember like finding their MySpace.
Oh wow.
And I remember it was like the description was like weirdos from Texas or something, or like freaks from Texas. And I think when I was younger, I had this thing, again, like this cultural feeling like I didn't belong to where I grew up, and like wanting to be somewhere else where I felt like I belonged. And I remember like getting into them partly because I was like, oh wow, they're from like Texas. Like, okay, maybe there's like cool stuff that can come out of like horrible places. So part of me, it was like this need to like them early on, to like get through living somewhere that's not great culturally. But I love everything about it. I also had like a huge crush when I was younger on Gibby Haynes, which I can understand people wouldn't.
I mean, I love, like, I fucking love the Butthole Surfers. I think I heard them like when they had, it was like when Who Was in My Room Last Night came out. It was like big on MTV for a month or two.
Yeah.
and I remember hearing, like, seeing the video, and just like, oh my god, what is this? This
Yeah.
is, and then it had a similar, like, oh my god, they're from Texas,
Yeah.
cool, like,
Yeah. Because I
and
think for me, oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh no, well, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think like when I got into them, it was around the time of when like Electric Larryland came out and like Pepper was on
Yeah.
like on the music video. Um, and I remember I liked that song and I actually still like that song. But the rest of the record, I remember listening to it and I was like, I don't like this. But then I don't even remember how I came across older stuff and being like, oh, this is like, it's like a completely different band. Almost.
Yeah.
And especially like this era. So Rocky's on Hairway to Steven. And it's like when you think of it in the context of like it's from the late 80s, you know?
I know.
Just crazy.
That's totally, yeah. I mean, their first record was in like 83 or something,
Yeah.
84.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And there's something, I don't know, I need to like dig deeper into this, but there's something about like the use of acoustic guitar in like late 80s, like pop music or rock music or whatever, like electric music, this acoustic guitar that pops out. It's like, it reminds me of like The Cure or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
It has a weird, it's like this weird Cure if they were from like Texas.
Yeah.
Like, cause it's like,
that's a good way to put it, actually. I feel like that's not too like far off.
Yeah, I had like a really, I think it was like 93 or 94. It was around when they were, I mean, I guess Pepper was like the height of their probably their mainstream popular. So it was before that, but they were on tour with Stone Temple Pilots, and I don't know if they were on tour, and Flaming Lips were also part of that tour, or if it was just here because Flaming Lips, Oklahoma. But it was like 93 or 94. It was the first day of school. I think that would have been it was like ninth grade, so the first day of high school for me. And that show was happening with Stone Temple Pilots, Butthole Surfers, and I went with like my sister and all her older friends, and it was, and like Butthole Surfers played last, which was and it, yeah, because it was, which was weird, but, and they just, it was, I don't know, it was life changing. Like it was so like anything I'd ever experienced.
Oh, I'm sure.
And man, and like, yeah, it's like I had to sit through Stone Temple Pilots to get there, but
I wonder if that era of Stone Temple Pilots maybe wouldn't be so.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was probably fine, and that was like that was, I think, and it was like right around the time when She Don't Use Jelly came out, so like Flaming Lips were cut, but like, they're like the Oklahoma band, so everybody around here thinks they're the greatest thing ever.
It's, I don't know, this like Butthole Surfers are like also my like driving music. So like anytime I'm driving, like my partner and I kind of have a, not a rule, but like whoever's driving gets to pick.
Yeah.
Yep. You know? And so if I'm driving, it's like pretty much always Butthole Surfers.
It's great driving. I mean, it's like
perfect.
Yeah. Oh, well, I love the opportunity to talk about Butthole Surfers. Okay, what was the last song you fell in love with?
Yeah. So this one was tricky too, because I also like, I feel like I'm really slow at getting into music sometimes. Like I listen to a lot of music and a lot of new music, but it just, for something to like really have some like effect on me, it sometimes takes a while. And this is one of those similar things like what we were talking about with Joni Mitchell, where I had, excuse me, completely written off Elliott Smith my whole life. Like, I think partly just because of my age and like when it happened, like I was in high school when he died. So I think there was like I missed the original Elliott Smith time.
Right.
And then there was like a bit of this like renaissance when he died. And that's when I remember like sort of realizing who he was. And I think at that time, I don't know, when I was in high school, I was like goth kid, like listening to the Crier and the Smiths and Bauhaus and whatever. And I was really into all that. And I think the idea of Elliott Smith, I was like, I don't want to listen to like some singer-songwriter sappy shit,
Yeah.
whatever. So I just kind of wrote it off then. And then as I got older and I kept like seeing his name, I wrote it off in the sense that like, oh, I missed it again. Like that you wouldn't be able to listen to it now because it'd be of a time and it just
Right.
wouldn't be able to enjoy it now. And then like I think it was 2 summers ago, I also on a plane. I spend a lot of time in planes. A lot of things happen on planes. I was watching Good Will Hunting on a
Ah.
plane, and it's like all Elliott Smith in the soundtrack.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, maybe I should try Elliott Smith again. And I was going to visit my parents in Calgary, and so that whole trip, it just like was this feeling of like summer. I don't know, like hot summer night kind of thing of like doing my deep dive on Elliott Smith and being like, holy shit, how did I go
Right.
this long? And now I'm like completely obsessed. I'm still like, it's kind of like I said with the Butthole Surfers, when I'm driving, it's either Butthole Surfers or Elliott Smith that I'm listening to, honestly. I'm still like, and it's been like 2 years and I'm still like, I feel like I'm just hearing it for the first time and I'm kind of obsessed with
That's
it.
awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's like it's such a weird thing where it's like you just have to sometimes hear the thing at the right time.
Yeah.
And if anybody's having trouble, try it on a plane because apparently a plane just makes you really
It's like
susceptible.
your mind is suspended and strange things happen.
Yeah, so it's like if there's a thing like God, so maybe you need to listen to Judy Sill on a plane, and then maybe
I know that sounds kind of scary. Actually,
it does. Actually, I don't know if I recommend that.
Yeah, but so the song that I picked is Elliott Smith, "Punch and Judy."
Such a good song.
Yeah, which is on Either Or. Which was, I feel like I've it's been long enough that I've gone through like phases of Elliott Smith. So like I started with Either Or. And again, at first I was like, this is a great, every single song on this record is perfect. Like, this is the best record.
Right.
How can anybody else like it? And my partner also, he liked Elliott Smith when he was younger and then has kind of stopped. And I think he's kind of rediscovered him through me discovering him again. And he kept being like, you gotta listen to Roman Candle. Like Roman Candle's the one, And I was like, no, I don't know. This one's perfect. I don't need anything else. And then kind of slowly going back and like listening to the self-titled record and then listening to Roman Candle and be like, oh, actually, these are better than this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're all so good.
Yeah.
But
yeah. It's amazing. It's like not, it's just not at all what I thought it was going to be. Like, I thought it was just going to be so dated and so like,
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't listen to Elliott Smith as much as I did. I have had phases too and have not had one recently, but anytime he comes up on here, I kind of go on a little mini, like, oh, I'm going to listen to Roman Candle. Usually is what,
yeah.
And it's like it's like if this came out today, I think people would have the same. It would be like, it's like, it sounds perfectly contemporary.
For sure.
Which is,
yeah.
Okay. All right. We have 2 questions left. Two big questions.
Yes.
So what's the song that means the most to you?
Yeah. Well, it's also a song that I really like, and it's from a record that I really like. But the song I picked for this is actually a John Frusciante song called "Going Inside," and it's from not his first solo record, but the first solo record like post like new era of John Frusciante, like early or late 90s, maybe 99 or 2000 or something is when it came out. The record "To Record Only Water for 10 Days." And I think I've mentioned this in some interviews previously, but I'm also like a huge fan of John Frusciante's solo music, especially like from this era, like from the 2000s. He released so much music in that decade. And I think it's all like, it's just so good. And I think for me, it's partly, I just think it's like really good music and I just really love it. But it also came into my life, I think, at a very specific time that like, I remember when I was in high school, I got this like really terrible inner ear infection that was like so intense that I had to be hospitalized because I couldn't keep any like food or drink down. So I had to be on an IV and like monitored until it cleared up. Yeah, it was really weird. It was really crazy. and thankfully it hasn't happened again since. um, but yeah, it was strange, and I was only in the hospital for a week, but when I came out of the hospital, I felt like just like a completely different person. Like my brain felt changed, and I had like lost a bunch of weight because I wasn't eating for a week, and I looked strange, and I just felt like a reborn person or something into the world, and having this like weird health scare. I don't know. It was just a very strange time. And I remember when I went back to school, a friend of mine gave me a burned copy of Record Only Water for 10 Days because he had just recently heard it, because it had just come out a few years prior. And I think just like, I don't know, I kind of associate that moment with like the beginning of like feeling my adult brain or something, or like feeling this sense of like being a person in the world, and what do I want to be, and there's a big world, and where do I want to fit in, and what is important, and all these kinds of things. And that record, I don't know, it just kind of like soundtracked that moment a
Yeah.
little bit. And then like again, it just, the timing of it, like that feeling, which had its ups and downs, which is like at certain points like this existential crisis of like, who am I, like what is life,
Right.
what is all this, what's going on. It just coincided with the rest of those records coming out over like 2004 to 2007 kind of period. And so every time one came out, like I don't know, there's a lot of music again, because I do have older siblings, and I obviously like older music as well. It's just a different listening experience when that music's already there and the whole catalog is there, and you
Right.
go back and pick and choose where you start,
Totally.
as opposed to following an artist like, oh, the new record's out, I'm going to listen
Right.
to, and going down that path that way. I think maybe that was kind of the first time I had done that with an artist that I cared about, whose music I cared about
Yeah.
at that age. So yeah, his solo music's been like really important to me. And also, yeah, I just think it's like, and each record is really different. Like they sound different, and they each have a different approach, which I also really respect, like in that producer brain of like, because I kind of think of my own records in that way, where like each one's kind of this self-contained thing that I'm trying to do this specific thing on. So
Right.
yeah, that concept is interesting to me.
Yeah. He's one of those people that, like you said, like all those records are so different, but it's still like you can tell it's him. Like
Yeah.
he has like he sounds like, if someone was like, well, what does he sound like? It's like, he sounds like John Frusciante. I don't know
Yeah.
what else to tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. And the songwriting is so good. It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
just love the way he plays, and just
Yeah.
love, like, I don't know what it is exactly about it that clicks, but
Yeah. Yeah. And this, I mean, I go back and forth of like the different records of that time of which ones are my favorites. But probably this one I keep going back to. I mean, there's also like the earlier solo stuff, like the Neanderlades record, which is very different from the rest of it. And I think that was kind of like this record was the first one that I heard, and that was like enough for me, at that point
yeah.
to be like, wow, this, I really am into this. And then at that time, nothing else had come out except for Neanderlades, which was already out. And so I went and listened to that, and I was like, whoa, this is the same person. Like, this is totally
Right.
different. And then that for me was like, okay, I'm in it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm here for this.
Yeah. Well, I think that's also what you're saying about it is such a like different feeling, and I feel like you have just a different connection to the music when it's like you follow it as it happens versus going back. And it's, when I think of bands and artists who have had that kind of staying power or impact, I don't know, like it's often those that have, and especially when it's someone who like something that like continues to hold up, and they continue like into as you become an adult, and it's like, God, they're still just killing it. Like,
yeah. And I, like the music that he makes now is very different. And it's not necessarily like what I prefer to listen to of his catalog. But again, I still respect, like, it's just cool that when like people are kind of in their own world, and they're like, I'm just gonna make whatever the fuck I want, and
I know,
care what everybody else thinks.
Yeah. Okay. Last question. What is your favorite song?
All right.
At least in this moment in time.
Yeah.
But maybe this is forever.
This one's for Chuck. The great Prague moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a very easy one to answer. The one that I picked is a song by Genesis called Stagnation. Yeah, I hate these like hypotheticals of like, if you're on a desert island and you only have one
Right.
CD, you know, what do
Right.
you take? Because like, when is that ever gonna?
Right.
Also, like, I don't want a fucking CD if I'm straight.
Yeah, it's like gonna be the least of my concerns.
Yeah. But you know, if I had to pick like one band, one record forevermore, it would be Genesis, and it would be Trespass, which is the record that Stagnation is on. It's like the perfect record. There's nothing wrong with it. Everything about, I mean, obviously there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those things of like, I can't imagine how anybody could not see this as like the perfect album as a whole, you know, like everything about it, like the feeling of it, the artwork, the narrative, I don't know, everything about it just comes together perfectly for me. And Stagnation is kind of like the centerpiece, I guess. Like in the literal sense, maybe like sort of the middle piece. And it's like a 10-minute song. I guess
it has like everything.
Yeah. Like and that's kind of what's indicative of Prague, like as like structurally, is like it goes through these peaks and valleys, and it has this mood, and then it shifts to this mood, and it's a lot of this contrast that's really like cool, I think, to put into music. But I don't know, everything about it, like Peter Gabriel's voice, the instrumentation. I mean, Tony Banks, I think, is like the greatest keyboard player of all time, and all of his parts and everything is just perfect. It's like, it's so good, everything about it. And the lyrics, and I don't know. I don't see anything. I don't see any fault with it.
It's a great song. I mean, that's this thing I do love about this kind of music, is that it's like, you know, I mean, it's kind of a cliche to say this about, but it like literally takes you on a journey. Like, I mean, it is, because there's like narrative and like sonic narrative and often actual narrative. And yeah.
There's I don't want to call them a cover band because that's not doing them justice, but there's a like tribute band called the Musical Box, which is a Genesis like tribute band, and they focus specifically on like Peter Gabriel era. They do like some early Phil Collins songs, like from the first two records with Phil Collins, which are also really good records, but they specialize in Peter Gabriel era Genesis performance, and they do everything. Like, he puts on the costumes, he does the banter. It's crazy, and they're so good, and they're Canadian also. They're French Canadian, which I take a little pride in. But we've seen them a few times, and the first time I saw them perform Stagnation, it was like a spiritual moment for me. It's crazy. It was so good. It's
awesome.
Yeah. And I'm like, weirdly, maybe this is like another fun fact about me, is that I actually don't like, I prefer studio recordings to things. Like, I don't really like live albums. I don't like bootlegs. I just don't like listening to like recordings of live music, really. And this is like a huge point of contention in our household because my partner is like really into the Grateful Dead, and I feel like I'm the only person. I like the Grateful Dead, but I feel like I'm the only person on the planet who likes the records rather than like live shit. It's weird, but but that was like a weird moment, like seeing them perform this, where I was like, oh, I kind of get it. Like, it's something very different when you're live and it's in the space, and there's like a different energy.
For sure.
Can't do.
Yeah. Well, that is a perfect place to end this. The Head is formed in the Crier's Choir.
Yes.
Got it. It's out on September 13th.
Yeah, it's Friday the 13th.
Yeah, perfect. Wonderful. Do you have any shows coming up or anything?
I do. Yeah, I have a bunch. I'm doing a record release show in LA. I don't know when this is going to air, but it's on September 10th is the show, on Tuesday, September 10th, at the Lodge Room in LA. And then I'm doing a little tour. I'm playing in New York on the 20th of September, Philadelphia on the 22nd. And then I have a bunch of dates in Europe, at like the end of September, early October. And then, yeah, some stuff in the fall, playing in San Francisco in mid-November, which will be a cool show. Yeah, just some little stuff that will come up more throughout the fall.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for doing this. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, this is really, I love, especially as like somebody who makes like weird experimental music.
Right.
It's really fun to like talk about like pop songs.
I know. That's like one of my favorite things about this is getting people who like, and yeah, hearing like, and I always get reactions to this where people are like, I can't believe so-and-so is like so into Prince. It's like, first of all, why? Like Prince is fucking amazing, but also
Yeah.
like,
Objectively,
yeah.
he's good.
Yeah, like, good Lord.
Yeah.
Awesome. Once again, thank you to Sarah Davachi for taking the time, making some picks, having some fun. Hey, be sure to pick up one or both of her new records. So, The Head Has Formed and The Crier's Choir. I'm getting good at saying that. And Music for a Bellowing Room, links in the show notes. She's got some live dates coming up. If you are lucky enough to be in one of those cities, do yourself a favor. Go see her. Because I don't get to. And so let me live vicariously through you. How about that? And as ever, thanks for listening. If you enjoy the show, please leave a rating and review wherever you listen to this. Because that helps with all the algorithmic bullshit. But hey, because in more people's ears, that's always a good thing. And if you really, really, really want to keep it going, you can join the Patreon, patreon.com/Foxy Digitalis. You get a bunch of extra stuff. You get full episodes, unedited. I mean, they're edited, but there's a whole section I cut out of this public version. And you get them a week early and more and all that. But hey, if that is not for you, take those few bucks, put it towards one of Sarah's records. And until next time, keep on listening to whatever the hell you want.